Ministry of Home Affairs announced that it has revoked the detention of activist Sonam Wangchuk under the National Security Act. This comes 6 months after he was jailed for allegedly inciting a mob with provocative statements in Ladakh's Leh. Wangchuk was detained and later sent to Rajasthan's Jodhpur Jail under the National Security Act. In a statement, the ministry said the decision to revoke the detention was taken after due consideration and noted that Wangchuk has already undergone nearly half of the period of detention under the Act. Government also added that Wangchuk has been detained to maintain public order following the violent protests. Congress MP Shashi Tharoor has also hailed the centre's decision. Taking to X, he wrote, I quote, delighted that the centre has revoked Sonam Wangchuk's detention, but 169 days seems to have been an inordinately long time. Wangchuk's detention came 2 days after violent protests demanding statehood and 6 scheduled status for Ladakh left 4 people dead and 90 injured in the Union Territory. The government had accused him of inciting the violence with his statements. The Supreme Court had earlier questioned the centre over discrepancies in the translated speeches used to detain the climate activist under NSA. Government had responded saying that the exercise had been carried out by a department and in today's age, AI was believed to be highly accurate. The bench said that the least it expected was a correct translation, noting that the version placed on record appeared far longer and materially different from what Wangchuk had actually said, which, according to his counsel, was limited to condemning violence. We also have our input editor, Brijesh Pandey, joining us live on this broadcast. Brijesh, a very good afternoon to you. What do we really understand about the government's thinking here in revoking the detention of Sonam Wangchuk under NSA?
Well, I think, the government has also realized that, on the last 2 hearing, the Solicitor General could not make an appearance citing ill health. But the fact of the matter also remains that the government was on the back foot vis-a-vis the kind of, the translation, the correct translation which the apex court was seeking and saying that the material which was promised to them was definitely not the material, which was being shown on the arrest order, and there was certain other discrepancies which were there on the ground. So this particular release did not came as a huge surprise, if you ask me. And the fact of the matter is that the government said that after 6 months, ever since that violence broke out, and the day after when Sonam Wangchuk was arrested, the government is now saying that that they have been in talks with all the stakeholders and people who are involved in ensuring peace as far as Ladakh is concerned. And now the government feels that that the release of Sonam Wangchuk is going to add to that process. So that is the official version which has come out, and the government, it's a big win as far as Sonam Wangchuk is concerned. But it'll be extremely interesting to see whether the Sonam Wangchuk camp decides to pursue with the affidavit, with the case which it had filed even after his release.
That's right. And Brijesh, preventive detention under NSA could run up to 1 year. So cutting it short by, half of its term, does the government really now see Sonam Wangchuk as not a threat?
Well, the government right now, I mean, if you go by the official version which has come out, now all of a sudden Sonam Wangchuk, which was a big threat to the national security and especially for the, peace of Ladakh, is now not in that kind of dangerous category, as far as his arrest is concerned. So it'll be very, very interesting to see, what pans afterwards, what happens to the case. Do they still press forward about, that the incorrect translation was provided to Supreme Court or the apex court was misled by the government? And what happens to Sonam Wangchuk activism now? Because, they have not budged, he has not budged from his stated stand, demand of statehood for Ladakh and also inclusion of Ladakh under Schedule 6 of the Constitution. So it'll be very, very interesting to see how the next 48 hours pan out.
So Brijesh, you're saying that the Ladakh agitation will regain momentum after his detention was revoked?
Well, I think, he will definitely, the other 2 key players as far as Ladakh agitation was concerned, in their conversation with MOS Home, Nityanand Rai, they had also pressed for a release of Sonam Wangchuk. But it has been 6 months, for that Sonam Wangchuk was kept behind bars. And there were many who believed that the kind of allegation which was leveled against Sonam Wangchuk, was not in congruence with what he has said and the kind of, the speeches which he has made. And that is the reason why, when the Supreme Court demanded about that particular clip and the correct translation of the speeches which was said given by Sonam Wangchuk, the government was not able to provide an exact and accurate transcription. So it'll be very interesting to see, what happens afterward. Will the government, now supply the correct translation? Will Kapil Sibal, who is appearing for Sonam Wangchuk, will they still persist with, why the government did not supply the correct translation and, what was the reason behind it? Or the government will also go for whether the arrest of the Sonam Wangchuk under NSA was it proper or not. So I think that they might go for it, but that's the reason I said next 48 hours are going to be very, very crucial.
Brijesh, before I move on, my final question, and this is something that everybody would want to know, does the revocation mean immediate release or will more cases attract trouble for Sonam Wangchuk?
No, I think, he has been arrested under NSA. So if the government has decided to revoke NSA, I think it means immediate release. There are technicalities, which is that the order of the MHA has to be supplied to the concerned jail where Sonam Wangchuk is currently lodged at. And once the jail authorities receive the NSA order, the MHA orders revoking NSA against Sonam Wangchuk, his release will be immediate after that.
Right, Brijesh, thank you for joining me with your insights. Well, that was our input editor giving us a 360-degree view on what this actually means. But we'll have to wait and watch when Sonam Wangchuk will be released, because like Brijesh said, that the order must be communicated to the jail where Sonam Wangchuk is currently detained, and this revocation marks a big moment as far as Ladakh agitation is concerned. And like Brijesh said, the next 48 hours are very, very crucial. And whether or not the Ladakh agitation regains momentum, that is something that remains to be seen.